So I initially took this class because I had to fill a GE requirement, and I'm really happy I ended up taking the course. I learned a lot this semester, and I'm a nursing major, so I think that this information is really relevant, and I'll definitely be using it in my field. I've noticed already that a lot of the patients that I've taken care of have been elderly patients, and I think it'll just kind of make me more aware of stereotypes and how the aging process works, and what I can expect from elderly. I was happy that I got to learn about age discrimination, and I thought that was really important because it's really prevalent still, and there is the Age Discrimination Act that tries to minimize it, but unfortunately that's still something that elderly people face, and it's still really prevalent, and I think it's something that we should all be still aware of. And ageism is really prevalent as well. And I thought one of the ways that to help with ageism that was interesting was the rebranding aspect of it, and I think I wrote about it in one of my reflections, talking about how if you rebrand ageism and just kind of changing the perspective, so instead of anti-aging products, do pro-aging products, and you're just focusing on trying to make it more positive, and reflect more positive light to aging. I think that could really help with ageism and just the fear of getting older. And aging is just a part of life, and it shouldn't be something that everyone's super fearful of. It just happens. So I think just changing the perspective of how we think about aging, and how we see older people. And there's a lot of media that kind of puts negative light on aging, so I think just changing things in the media would be really beneficial. I found it interesting to learn more about Social Security, and I thought the game was interesting because I was playing it, and at first I just did the if you raise the taxes the most amount of percent, then that will solve 80% of the problem. But at first I was like, oh cool, I solved 80% of the problem, but then I realized oh wow, that would be raising the taxes a lot, and that's just unrealistic. So I thought that was interesting, that there are ways that you could still solve the Social Security problem, but they just wouldn't be very realistic, and they'd be really expensive for us. And there can just be it's really complicated because there just can be a lot of negative outcomes for everybody depending on what you do. Another thing with Social Security that I found kind of sad was that they don't get as much money as I thought that they do once you retire. And I think in one of the examples in the book was a lady, she was only getting about $800 a month, and that just wasn't enough for her. And she has grandchildren to take care of, and she wasn't able to afford gym memberships. And I thought it was kind of sad that kind of going along with age discrimination is that a lot of elderly are pushed into retirement early just because employers want newer, faster workers, even though I learned that that's not always true, or there's pros and cons to both new and old workers. But and then the only source of income they have is the little bit of money that they get from the Social Security. So that was kind of sad. And then I thought learning about role losses and role changes was really interesting, and somebody going from retirement, or they were employed for a really long time, obviously 30 to 40 years, and then they have to transition into retirement, how that can really change and maybe affect their self-esteem. They're not the citizen, hardworking, employed citizen anymore. And then that kind of transitions into what I was thinking about, the biopsychosocial and the biopsychosocial approach, and how you're supposed to be physically, socially, and psychologically balanced. And if you're having a low self-esteem from role changes or role shifts, how that can like negatively affect like the physical or like social, you know, you're not getting enough support from your family, so that makes you feel more depressed and just things like that. So I just thought that the biopsychosocial approach was really interesting as well. And just how being even like active and like there's like the activity theory that, you know, states that being active can provide a lot more positivity and shows how like older people can cope better with like role losses, and it just kind of makes you feel young again and can like kind of keep your spirits up. And so yeah, I just think the course has made me think a lot about how I might age, and it kind of worries me, but it also motivates me to try to take care of myself now, and you know, maybe even start saving money now, or try being healthier now. And yeah, I think it's just good to get these things started early. So overall, I think the course was very informative and definitely something that I'll be using later in my career.